Alrighty, good night, good evening, good morning. It is another Thursday. Yes, it is another Thursday, and of course we're here to do it all over again. But tonight it's not about the lanes on the track, but it will be about the lanes in the pool. Yes, it will be. And wherever you're joining us from, whether you're coming from whichever of the seven continents, whether it's Africa, Asia, Europe, Antarctica, Oceanic, North America, South America, I hope I got all the continents. Welcome. Welcome to another night of talking or chatting to one of our many, many, many Olympians. And of course, she is here to tell us her story tonight. And of course, this will be Janelle Atkinson. We will be hearing a little bit about her legacy. And of course, we're going to have fun. Tonight, it is about being unfiltered and having fun with this amazing woman. So, guys, don't go anywhere. Stay right there. Welcome. Remember to like, share, subscribe, all the niceties. Show us some love so that we can spread the legacy. And don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Thank you.
Jamaica's track and field legacy is unmatched. It is a story of triumph, resilience, and extraordinary talent. But do you know the stories behind the athletes who brought us glory? Hi, I'm HP, founder of HP Chat Track. My mission is simple: to celebrate the rich legacy of Jamaica track and field and shine a light on the incredible people who make it happen. Winning that race was a dream come true, but the journey wasn't easy. It's not just about medals, it's about inspiring the next generation. Jamaica track and field isn't just a sport, it's our pride, our culture, our heart. Every week I sit down with athletes, coaches and fans to bring you stories of dedication, passion and legacy. Plus, we've got exciting news and exclusive insights into the world of track and field. Make your Thursday night be at HP's place. Come hang out with us at HP Chat Track Studio, where track and field is our business. Jamaica, one people, one legacy.
Get up on, no, don't stop. Future bright, the vibes nice.
Welcome back. We are here. We are back. Look at this smile, guys. She is here tonight to give us a little bit about her legacy, her life, her journey. And let me tell you, and she will tell you too, I'm very excited about this interview because we're moving away from the lanes on the track to the lanes in the pool. And let me tell you, this lady, when you hear her legacy, you are going to be in awe. So if you did not know about her before, you're going to know about her tonight. As she is the first woman of the pool at the Olympic Games for Jamaica. Janelle, welcome.
Thank
Welcome.
you, thank you. I feel like I snuck into the VIP lounge that I'm not supposed to be here.
Definitely.
It's all track and field, so this will be the first swim on
You're,
non-track and field.
you're in a very special group. You're in an elite group. You're in an elite
Yes.
group. Welcome,
Although
welcome.
I do have to correct you because I'm actually the second female for Jamaica. The
Oh,
first
you
was, I
are?
believe, Belinda Phillips. Yes, I was the first to
Oh,
make
wow.
it to the finals.
Oh, thank you for that correction. Because
No
when
problem.
I look at my research, it was showing me you at first, and I was like, "Is this data accurate?" But I'm glad that you made the correction because that's what we're here for, to learn
Of
from
course.
each other and to learn about the legacy. Thank you very much for that. And already we have Olympian from the track on the live with us. Vonnie M, who is Ivan Saunders, 1972 Olympian for Jamaica. Of course, Janelle wasn't born yet, but welcome,
Close.
Bonnie M. There's also Monica Lewis that is here, and she's saying, "Good evening, HP and guests. Another weekend, Eve. Hope everyone having a good week so far." And indeed, indeed. But let us go back to the woman of the hour. And guys, if you want me to see your comment and read your comment, come on over to YouTube where I will see your comment. I cannot see the comments on Facebook. I'm very sorry. So come on over, hang out with us, and throw your questions at Janelle. Janelle, welcome again. I said that before, right?
Yes, and thank you for having me again.
Indeed, 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 indeed. Let us look at your life a little bit before we even get into the big stuff. Tell us a little bit about Janelle as a little girl growing up, going to prep school
Oh,
and running around the house in diapers. Tell us a little bit about the troublemaker that you are.
I was not a troublemaker at all. I was actually very quiet, very shy. Um, my parents joke about it now, at least like when I was growing up, that they thought I had special needs because I never spoke. I just sat there and smiled at everybody. I would laugh, and it took me a while to start talking. And I remember my mother was telling me that she brought me to the specialist, and they're like, nothing's wrong with her. Like, she just takes her time to, like, she doesn't want to essentially like jump at the question and answer right away. She takes her time, thinks about it, and then answers. So I think from there, that kind of was like, all right, she'll be okay. But I mean, I was a tomboy to the core. I had a younger brother, and it's basically me, him, and all the boys in the neighborhood just running the streets, riding bicycles all over the place. I have an older sister as well. She was very girly, didn't know how to ride a bicycle since she was like in college. So
Wow.
yeah, no, I wasn't bad, but I was just out doing boy things all the time.
Awesome, awesome. Which parish are you from? Where in Jamaica are you from?
Kingston.
Kingston? Okay.
Kingston.
City girl under the clock.
Yes, exactly. I grew up in Jax Hill.
Uptown, St. Andrew, Upper St.
Yes.
Andrew, Upper St.
Apparently uptown.
Andrew. Which primary or prep school you attended?
So I actually went to two. I started off at St. Peter and Paul, and then I finished the last couple of years at Lanhaman's Prep.
Cool. Upper St.
hmm
Andrew girl. What inspired you though to get into swimming? Was it to get you to settle down? Was it to get you to be disciplined? Whose idea was it for you to
Um,
take up swimming as an extra curriculum activity?
I can tell it was not mine. And anybody who knows me knows this story entirely because so growing up in Jax Hill, we had my parents essentially like built a house and like built a pool there. And they knew how to swim, but that was about it. So when myself, my sister, my brother, were getting of age, they're like, okay, we really need to have them have swim lessons. And we're a typical Jamaican family. Every Sunday go church. After church is Sunday school. And I remember very just like vividly that Sunday also meant swim lessons. So we had a guy named Neville who worked at the Y. My parents found him. And basically just like, yeah, we'll pay to come up to the house on Sundays. They'll be coming right back from Sunday school and we'll have them just go straight into the pool. And I mean, back then, I mean, listen, learn to swim as much as parents are like, oh, my poor baby, they're crying and this. Yeah, my learn to swim was literally he threw us in the water and just like, come back. And we're like, come back.
Wow.
How? So it was very, very traumatic. I mean, apparently I get to live to tell the tale, but that's how I learned how to swim. From there, with my brother and sister, he basically told my parents like, yeah, you should have them come join the swim team. And he basically sold it to them as free babysitting because my parents had a business in Kingston, so they were always busy. So he was like, yeah, just drop them off at the Y after school finished at 2 o'clock, practice starts at 4 o'clock, and it's they'll be in a safe environment, nothing's going to happen to them, and there'll be other kids there, and he just pick them up afterwards whenever. So I mean, we'd be there till like 7, 8 o'clock at night sometimes, just hanging out. And I don't even. I probably shouldn't say that out loud, but we were safe. And pretty much that's kind of how swimming became a big part of our family. Both my sister and my brother both swam for Jamaica as well. My sister went to Pan Am Games, that's a high she's been to. My brother is also a two-time Olympian. So
Wow. Tell
fun
me
fact.
a little bit about high school. Did you continue swimming at high school? Where did you go to high school? I know where you went to high school. Tell everybody else where you went to high
So I started off high school in Jamaica. I went to Campion College for up until third form, and then after that, I went to boarding school in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Bowl School. So that was almost kind of like a transition. After third form, my sister, who just finished fifth form, was going to this school. to basically just kind of get another year under our belt, because obviously in Jamaica we know when you finish fifth form you're 15, and no college, I shouldn't say no college taking you that young, but as a part of that, that was kind of going to be like a gap year, a postgraduate year for her, to acclimate to the US system and then going to college. The summer that she was supposed to go, we always spend the summers in Miami with our family because my parents were divorced. So my mother is busy running her business, my father's doing his thing. So she would send us to the US to summer camp for swimming. And that summer she was like, yeah, call us one day, me and my brother, and she was like, yeah, by the way, I know, your sister was going to boarding school, but both of you are actually going with her. And I remember being so traumatized, being like, wait, what? But what about my friends? And what about, all these other things? I never got to tell anybody bye. I never got any contact information for anybody, other than obviously like phone numbers, but that was it. So it was hard. But at the same time, I know, understand like sacrifices, needed to have been made. And even then, I don't think she ever thought that I would get to that point. I don't think anybody ever did, including myself. But yeah, that's kind of how the step-by-step journey.
Well, let me ask you something. I have to ask you this because over here we are big in track and field. I mean, in Jamaica, we run. Running is what we do. Have you
Hmm.
ever thought about doing?
Listen, when I tell you, I'm like a fish out of water when it comes to any land activity. And I tell people all the time, I'm not built for land activities at all.
Listen,
So
man,
that's why I still laugh.
in Jamaica, everybody can run. That's what we do. We
Not
run.
everybody.
You grew up in Jacksonville. Jacksonville
Hmm.
has a hill. I don't. You should know this hill that a lot of people come to train and athletes go
Hmm.
there to do strengthening work. I have been there myself when I used to run a lot of 5K, and that hill is tough. I mean,
Yeah.
have you ever tried that hill?
For what? I used to go, like, we would go walking, around, and like I said, me and the boys in the neighborhood, we'd ride our bikes and stuff. But yeah, it was steep. Honestly,
Yeah,
like, I'm surprised I didn't have more broken bones than I did, because I mean the stuff that we would do, trying wheelies, and yeah, not smart.
very, very tough. At what point okay, before we even get there, when you
Hmm.
started swimming, did it ever enter your mind any at all that you wanted to compete for Jamaica, or you wanted to be in competitive championship, or it was because you were thrown in the pool by your parents to learn and swim?
So I was throwing the pool for one, and then my sister, who is older, she was kind of going through the ranks of, Jamaica swimming. So with that, it's one of those where when she made the team, I was like, oh, that's a thing. And I never really wanted to swim, to be honest. And anybody who knows me knows this. It was never really my passion. My sister was really involved in swimming, but with being a single parent, is one drop off and one pickup. So whichever sport the oldest one wanted to do, that's what everybody else got to do. So swimming was kind of it. We tried different things, like, my sister played piano. I was also not good at that. Um, and those were kind of the things where, again, one pickup, one drop off. So my sister was really involved in swimming. I really actually wanted to pursue dancing and performing arts, and there just wasn't time. I would sneak it in every once in a while, especially like sports day. But other than that, like, it wasn't really something that was an option.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about your training in the early days. What was your training like on a day to day? Did you have to swim every day? Was
Hmm.
it once a week, or just tell me a little bit about your training program?
At a very, like, I would say, early age, basically the first time, well, I started swimming competitively at 4 years old. Um,
Hold
so
on,
it's
back up a little bit. Who started
Mhm.
doing anything competitive at age 4?
Apparently me. Yeah, no, and like I said, it's one of those things where it was started off so young, and we just kind of like kept with it, and it became such a convenience, for my mother especially, because she raised us, um, to have us in one place. So it was basically, it was always swimming. And I remember her always threatening us. And by threatening us, I'm talking about my brother and sister, me and my brother, because we were the younger ones. Of, the day you quit swimming is the day you leave, you move out the house. And obviously at 5, 6, 10, I'm not moving anywhere because I have nowhere else to go.
How did you stay? You were threatening and all these things to do swimming. It
Hmm.
wasn't really something that you wanted to do, but
No.
were you able to stay motivated and disciplined to get to where you are today?
To be honest, that took out a lot of my frustrations with, I guess kind of like having to do swimming, right? I didn't have a choice, but it's one of those where it's like sometimes you don't have a choice, but you can either essentially just do it just to do it, or you can make use of your time. So I took a lot of my frustrations out of having to do it, and really just continue to push myself and push myself. Just because, like, what else was I going to do? I couldn't leave the sport. It wasn't never an option. So yeah, it's kind of sad, but
I don't know if it's sad because the next question I'm going to ask you now. No, well, maybe this is a question I need to leave for later on down. So I hope I remember it because it's not on my script. But what were some of the challenges? Did you face any challenges at all? What were some of the challenges you faced and how were you able to overcome to get to Olympic greatness or Olympic glory in a
mhm.
sport that was not as common in Jamaica?
Yeah, so one of the I guess one of the biggest things was actually the culture shock when I first moved to the US and went to boarding school. Um, because, even though we obviously speak English in Jamaica, um, it's, the dialect, it's different. And, when you come to the US, there is this, especially the school I went to, is a very I would call it posh private school. And as a person of color, you're walking in and they just kind of like typecast you. And like once I start talking to you, like, oh, you're not you're not like black. It's like, well, yeah, but it's almost kind of like a separation from, okay, you're a foreign though, so you're different. So it's almost kind of like trying to walk that line a bit and understanding more about, okay, like where do I fit in here? And then on top of that, I mean, I'm 13 years old, I'm living in a new country, trying to understand the cultural norms, which are totally different from Jamaica's norms, and then still trying to figure out who I am, and going through these changes and going through you know puberty, like all these things, and there's no one to talk to because it's like my parents are here, I don't really know anybody. So that I would say is probably the most difficult time because it was the most difficult, but also at the same time, the turning point in my career. Because at that point, this again, I took out a lot of the frustrations of having to do the sport and, my feelings about having to do it. And really just kind of like zeroing in and narrowing in and forcing myself and really pushing myself past boundaries that I never even thought possible. By the end of my sophomore year, I was all of a sudden being catapulted into, Pan Am Games and like all these other, things that I was like, I didn't know anything about this life. I'm looking at just Caribbean level type stuff. And getting to that level and really understanding, right now at, we'll just say, how much older age, I can understand, the impact that I had on the sport, the impact I had on Jamaica swimming. And, looking back at it now, as difficult as it was such a, I don't know, like a life-changing thing for me to have to, go through that because again, the same like frustrations and the setbacks and everything again was poured right back into swimming and, continue to push myself further and further.
You were forced by your parents or parents.
Uh-huh.
Um, were you rebellious? How angry? Just explain a little bit. Were you angry?
Oh.
Were you appreciative? Were you
Yeah, I was very angry. And, even though I was a very quiet child, it's also one of those where I had a temper. And there was only so many times that you could poke the bear before the bear woke up and just swiped left and right without any care about who got hurt, who got hit. So that was another way of almost kind of like channeling a lot of my frustrations and anger of, like, I don't want to be here, but if this is something that can help me progress in something else, then like might as well do it, because it's like you make the most of the time that you have. And that's kind of how I've approached everything in life, from my career in I guess like a profession, also as a coach, as an athlete, and even as a parent.
Wow, wow. When you look back, let us talk about the Olympic Games. When you discovered that you made the Sydney Olympic Games in 2000, you were just 17, right?
I was 16 when I found out that I made it, and then I was 17 by the time I actually went.
Okay, so you went there
Mhm.
at age 17. When you discovered that you made the Olympic team, you were going to the Olympic Games. I want you to just break it down a little bit, how you felt when you get that call or that email to say, hey, you have made the Jamaica Olympic team.
I'm trying to remember where exactly I was, because a part of me knew, because unlike basically everywhere else, we don't have trials. It's basically just kind of like you have the time, you can go. And certain countries have different kind of like politics that go around. But I mean, for me, I was the only person that was at that level anyway, so it was kind of like a no-brainer that I knew I was going to go. And I think when it became official, like I was going, I think I just had like a surreal moment of just like, wait, what? Really? Seriously? Even though I kind of knew months in advance, based on, going to Pan Am Games, winning 3 silver medals. Jamaica has never won a medal in swimming at that point, especially at that games, at least not to my knowledge. So to then get the call to officially say you're on the team, it was almost kind of like a surreal moment of thinking back of all the things that I had gone through, all of the trials, the tribulations, the injuries, the frustrations, and almost kind of like recognize like, okay, so as much as I didn't want to be here to do this, this has come from that. So it's not all bad.
Indeed, indeed. When you got to the games and you line up in your event, I think it was what, the 400-meter freestyle?
Yeah, that was my first event.
When you line up in that race, in that moment, you were wearing your Jamaican cap and you had on your
Hmm.
thing, and everybody were like ready to go. What was going through your mind?
That was probably the most nervous I've ever been. And I'm usually not one to, I get nervous for meets and I get nervous even when my son, does his sports. But that was like a whole different level of nerves. Because, it's one of those things where growing up, you know, watching sports, especially in Jamaica, where it's like, track, football, netball, and then what else is there?
Mhm,
Um, and that's no disrespect to any other sport, but that's kind of like how it is. Like we know the hierarchy here.
mhm.
And as I'm back there, I remember being in the ready room and just sitting there just in awe, being like, these people are like world class athletes, and not even thinking to myself like, no, you are also a world class athlete because you're in the room with these people. And I
Mhm,
will never forget Brooke Bennett from the US, who also trains in the US, also lives
mhm,
in Florida. She had kind of been, we basically had pushed each other for the last probably like 2 years back and forth, because we went to the same meets, we're in the same area, and we were in the same heat for the preliminaries. And I remember her looking over at me and like, what's wrong with you? Like, this is not you. You don't usually look like this. Like, yeah, you're nervous, but like, you're a mess right now. And I was like, Brooke, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. And she was like, Janelle, listen, like we've been through this so many different times. We're in a heat together. So this is probably the best case scenario, because like you and I would do this like on a regular basis. And to me that was like such a huge like Olympic moment for me, where
Mm-hmm.
as cutthroat as it is, people are there to support you
Yeah.
regardless of which country you're from. And being swimming from Jamaica, it's like there are definitely a lot of heads like, Jamaica in the
Mm-hmm.
400, because most people, especially in the Caribbean, were in the sprint events, which
Yeah.
was a whole other barrier that I was breaking through with. So to be back there in that ready room. And, to me, I remember at the training camp in Melbourne, where we went to, and they had a almost like a psych sheet, because swimming is huge in Australia. So they had like a predictions of like the top three, and then, the notables that would be in there. So basically they had the top eight and then like two other people. And I remember seeing it, I was like, oh, I wonder if my name's in there, because I knew I was ranked, I think, ninth in the world at that point. So I was like, oh, maybe they'll mention me. Nothing. I was like, okay, that's cool. So when I got to the ready room, I was like, oh, like I don't even like I just don't. I want to be close enough at least to top eight, but I never really thought that I would make it to the finals. So I remember
And you sure did.
I did, so
Mm-hmm.
much to my surprise and also kind of like annoyance, because I end up qualifying as a third top seed going back into the final. And I was like, no, I'm going to come dead last in lane three, and that's embarrassing. And everybody was like, no, but you made the final, you made the final. I was like, no, 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 no. Yes, I
Listen
made the
to
final,
me.
but I'm in the middle of the pool. I need to be on the outside of the pool.
Do you remember what happened? You didn't just make the final. You made the final with a national record.
I did. I did. Yeah. And I mean, the national record was my own national record from
Mm-hmm.
last year at the Pan American Games. So to me, I was like, I was already on cloud nine. I was like, listen, best time at the Olympics. What more could you ask for? And then they're like, you made it back third. I was like, wait, what? No, 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 that was not the plan. I wanted to make it back, but like seventh, eighth, maybe even sixth, and looking at the field of the other, top eight, the other seven athletes in the heat, I'm looking at them like, this person's best time is like 3 seconds faster than like the time that I did, which is not my best time. And I'm going through name by name by name. I'm like, I don't belong here. This is crazy. And I'm going to embarrass myself by not, being close to anybody else. I'm coming last. Like, but then it's almost kind of like I don't know,
You had a moment.
I had a moment when I went to the ready room. It was a different vibe, where I was no longer nervous about, oh my gosh, I made it, I finally here. It was like, well, I'm here. It is what it is. And one of the big things I've always said to my athletes, and even, as a sportscaster, is, if you have a lane, you have a chance. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like been my mantra with everything, where it's just like, okay, well, I'm here and there's a reason I'm here. So again, let me make the best out of a situation. And I know that probably sounds terrible, like, oh, a situation is making it to the Olympic final. Like, okay, get a grip. But
You're very
that was,
you're very tough on yourself.
I am very hard on myself. Very, very hard on myself.
But that Olympic Games, Sydney, I was actually watching, and when you set that national record, and of course you came back to the final. I'm not even going to tell them what happened in the final. I'm going to leave that until we go lower down. But before we go any further, let us just welcome each and everyone. Monica Lewis, welcome. Thank you for being here. Andrea Bliss is saying, Janelle, hi girl. Chris
Bliss.
Downing Chris Downing is saying, shout out to Jama from her favorite member of the bus.
That's
Your
one of my former athletes.
There you go. Chris is saying hi to you. Also, we have Darcy Scott Genius, who is another Olympian, a 1980s Olympian from Jamaica, 1980 and 1984 from the track. She actually made the final of the long jump in 1980, or was it 1984? But she did make the final of a field event, which was the long jump. So we've been doing great things from as
Hmm.
far back as then. And of course, Dorothy Scott is saying, hello, HP and guest, and everyone watching. It's refreshing to have another Olympian who is not in track and field. Welcome, Janelle. Thank you very much for that, Dorothy. And also, Vonnie M, who is, I said before, 1972 Olympian, she is saying this is so amazing. And it is amazing to have Janelle Atkinson with us tonight. And of course, this story is uncut, no editing. We're not leaving out anything. The whole thing, we are just going to go in it. But to come back to the woman of the hour, the 4 years after the Sydney Olympic Games,
Hmm.
you did a few surgeries,
Yes.
quite a few surgeries,
Hmm.
in order to get ready. Well, not in order, but it was like between the Sydney Olympics and the Athens Olympic Games, going back to Athens, which you did. Tell us a little bit about those surgery, why you had to do surgery.
Yeah, so basically my knees were always not the greatest. So that's why when you said, "You ever thought about running?" Nope, body was not made for that. So throughout high school, actually, wasn't able to do a lot of the drilling exercises, so like the running, etc., because it was too much pounding on my knees. So I actually opted to push the surgery till after the Olympics, or actually basically when I went to college. So that's kind of what I did. So after I had surgery, I did both knees at the same time. I would not recommend that to anybody. Um, and coming back from having both knees done, I ended up tearing both of my rotator cuffs. So that was a bit of a setback. I was still competing, I didn't take the year off or anything after my knees. I did it right when the season ended, in college in March. And by, I think, August, I was already, not even August actually, what am I talking about? Probably like June, July, I was back in the pool. I competed at the Goodwill Games, and won, I think, a silver and a bronze medal, I believe, representing the rest of the world. And then from there, swam another year on the shoulders, and then end up redshirting the year to have surgery one shoulder at a time. One shoulder ended up being a lot worse than the other, but it is what it is. So then by the time, I believe it was that year before the Athens games, trying to get back into the swing of things. And, it's not like my races, 20 seconds or anything. My races were like 4 minutes and change, 8 minutes and change. So it's a lot of shifting speeds, changing gears, and, the mental capacity of it all was really challenging.
Wow, and that's the next thing I'm going to ask you about. How important, we know that mental sport is more mental than physical. That's what I heard from a lot
Hmm.
of athletes. What was it like for you as a swimmer? Did you have to rely on mental conditioning in order to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so with swimming, right? Or let's start off with track and field. You're constantly hearing the coaches, the teammates, whatever, because you're running on the track and it's in open space. In the pool, for those of you who know to swim, all you're hearing all the time is whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So in practice, even, we understand the sets. The sets are kind of broken down for us. The coach sets up his expectations, and everything is basically timed, much like track. The difference is that once we push off of the wall, all communication ceases with our coaches. So you don't really have an idea of how fast or how slow you're going sometimes. So there is a lot of, you can almost kind of get in the zone. Like, runners often talk about runners high, where, they just get in the zone and their mind is clear and they can run for, miles and feel comfortable and feel fine. Swimming can do the same thing, with the exception of having walls and turning, but for the most part, it's the same thing. So when you're essentially training at that type of level, you can see the coach every once in a while, but you can always breathe to the other side, so you can ignore him. But there's so much mental, almost kind of like anguish a lot of times, because you're stuck with your own thoughts. So in practice, in a race, in any type of situation, when you're swimming, it's almost kind of like you fighting against your body on a constant basis of just like, no, it's time to go. And everybody's like, no, we're tired. And you're like, no, you need to kick, you need to pull, you need to do something. So there's always this, it's like a constant, almost like struggle. And it's like, in track, maybe you can like, feed off the energy of the crowd and you get a little bit more hype. But in swimming, you don't have that because you can't really see anything. You can't really hear anything. You just assume that things are still happening. And all you can see are the people to your left and to your right. Maybe you can see one extra lane over, but it's basically just splashes. So you're relying a lot on your own senses and a lot on your own ability and the trust that you have in yourself and in your body, and how mentally tough you are to basically force your body to do things that it doesn't want to do.
Wow. Well, let me ask you something. How do you know when you're swimming?
Mhm.
How do you know when it's time to touch and turn to go back in the opposite direction?
So in backstroke, you'll see like the flags in the pool on opposite ends. So backstrokers will normally count their strokes once they start seeing the flag above them, and then that's how they know. Do it when you're on your stomach, especially for freestyle, you're looking straight down. You can see we call it the T, and you see it at the ends of each side. So for the most part, you know how many strokes past the flags. If you're doing backstroke, you know how many strokes past the T. With breaststroke and butterfly, you can see, but at the same time, too, you kind of have the more that you're involved in the sport, um, is the more you can trust and feel the actual wall come up. You're approaching the wall. So even right now, like the few times that I jump back in and swim, I can actually just I can close my eyes and swim and know exactly when to turn. I can feel the wall against me or at least coming up on me. So, but that takes many years of practice. Do not try that at
Wow,
home.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing, because that's something that I was always curious about. I'm like, how do they know when is it? Do you have to touch the wall to turn, or you can just?
It depends on the stroke. So butterfly and breaststroke, you have to touch the wall with two hands and turn. They have to simultaneously touch the wall at the same time because the pads will recognize the differentiation. In freestyle, basically anybody, any parts of your body can touch. On the fit, well, for the finish, for the turn, basically, yeah, sometimes you're too far, sometimes you're too close. Because the thing is, even though you're counting your strokes, you still have to have the same amount of power and speed and maintaining that. So is one of those where even if you're typically like doing backstroke and then you'd say like, all right, it takes me 4 strokes to get to the wall. If you're tired, the strength behind the pull kind of weakens a bit. But you have to understand, okay, am I taking this other stroke? Am I trusting that I did enough, or am I flipping and go taking an extra stroke? So it's a lot of, again, like thinking about it, because you can, we call jamming the turn, where you get too close to the wall and then you end up having to tuck a lot tighter and then you're not as comfortable or as explosive coming off. Or you can be too far from the wall and you don't get as strong of a push off.
Wow, I'm learning. Before we go any further, let us just look at some of the comments. Lily Hodges, another Olympian, Jamaican Olympian, of course, from the track 90s,
Mm.
70s, and 80s Olympian. She's also here saying hi. Anthony Henry is also here saying good night, everyone. Anthony Henry is also saying good night, Janelle Atkinson. He's singling you out. I just
Thank you,
get
Anthony.
I just get good night, and you get good night, Janelle Atkinson. Wow.
Much
Track and,
appreciated.
track and field hobby saying, I tried competitive swimming club level and made halfway before started swallowing water.
That's a thing.
Oh my God. He said he started swallowing water from being tired. Totally different from running. I totally
Hmm.
agree. I totally agree with that.
But you can't
Anthony,
just stop and sit down on the track. Like you still have to get to some level of safety, whether it's holding on to the lane rope, but you still have to get to a wall where somebody can help you out. Or yeah, it's not for
my
the weak.
it's not. I wish I could swim, but I stay away from water like that. Anthony Henry is also saying he's one of your favorite fans. No, let me read what
Oh,
he said. One of your favorite fans here. Okay, good. Keisha Wignall, good night. Welcome, welcome, good night. She's saying, as a proud sister always I am watching. Thank you very much, Keisha Wignall, for being
Thanks,
here.
sis.
Of course, Anthony Henry is very busy in the chat. I am watching and studying. He's watching and studying. Uh, Phil DePaul is saying Janelle got that boom zeal up. I love the comments. Keep them coming, keep them coming. But let me ask you, Janelle, how deep is the pool, the Olympic size pool? How deep is the pool?
I'm not really sure. I never really took much, I
Look
guess,
here,
kind of stock in how deep it is. It's not super deep because it's
no,
one
no,
of those where
stop it. It's deep.
it's not that deep. It's not like diving deep. Like
Oh, it's
diving,
not.
that's like, yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
it's
not
not
the same.
diving deep. Oh, but
Yeah,
it's
like some pools, they'll attach the diving portion or like the diving platforms to the pool itself, but like for the Olympics, for instance, like it's separate. So I don't know if for those of you who watched the Olympics this year, you saw a lot of or was it not as many world records being broken, and they were saying like the height of the pool or like the depth of the pool was contributing towards that, like it was too shallow. Because we
oh,
need some deep water as well, because the way that swimming works, the water on top moves with you, right? So if the water is moving with you, and if you're swimming and pulling and you're having a shallow pull, the pull isn't as strong because the water is moving with you. If you pull your hand deeper, it's almost kind of like you almost kind of feel like your hand is in mud in a sense. But because that water isn't moving, that means that you actually can pull more water, and like there's more efficiency with the stroke. So even though you may be taking less strokes and it's harder, you're actually pulling more. So it's almost kind of like when you're riding the bicycle and you change the gears, right? When you're
wow,
going uphill or downhill, you know what I mean? Like you can change the gears and make it smaller, and then you're pedaling, I guess, kind of like faster, but you're
mm,
not necessarily having as much weight behind it. Whereas when you drop the gears down a bit more, that's where you kind of like you feel almost kind of like more power in the stride, um, and you're getting further, but again, you're
wow,
using a different type of energy. I
wow.
think I said that right, but
That thing that you just said, that the diving pool wasn't deep enough. I mean, that is hearing that, it sounds kind of scary to me because divers need, when they're coming from so high, they need room because isn't it a case where
yeah.
they go
Well,
down?
the diving pool was deep enough. The competitive pool, the swimming pool, that
Oh,
was not that was more shallow than it normally would be.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I am learning. I am learning here. And before we go any further, more comments. Anthony Henry saying, "Who would thought shallow water reduces speed?" Interesting.
Yeah, it reduces the efficiency. So you're not necessarily pulling as hard as you would, which
Hmm.
means that you're actually not moving as fast. So your tempo is moving faster, but if you had deeper water and that water that wasn't moving with you, you can pull harder, but get
Hmm.
more distance off of it.
Very interesting. We are
Hmm.
learning tonight. Darty Scott, Olympian Darty Scott is saying anything above my knee is too deep, and I totally agree. I totally agree. When you can't swim, if it passes the knee, it is a problem. It is a problem.
Well,
Track and
let's put it
field.
this way. If I was ever chased by anybody, like I'm playing dead. Like I can't run. It's embarrassing. So we all
Yeah,
have our strengths.
yes, and our weaknesses. I totally agree. Track and field hobby saying, by the way, big ups to my fellow Olympian Janelle Atkinson. No matter the sport, not everyone gets the title Olympian, and that is true. That's
Much
true.
appreciated.
Yeah, that is true. It is a big deal. It is a
Yes.
big deal, and I recognize that it is a big deal. But before we go any further, Janelle, I just want to look at some of your achievements. Not everything, okay?
Hmm.
I love this part because sometimes athletes tend to not remember or to look
Yeah.
at their achievements on, on a wide scale or in detail. So I like to point it out to you guys. So you're a two-time Olympian. Sydney Olympic
Mhm.
Games in 2000, Athens Olympic Games 2004. You competed in the 2000 Olympic Games as a teenager, age 17, 16 plus, going 17. You're Jamaica's, I had it as first, but as second Olympic female swimmer. You finished fourth, barely. Listen, when I was watching that race, I was like, damn, you barely missed out on medal at the Sydney Olympic Games, where you finished fourth in the 400-meter freestyle final, just missing out on a medal. I don't know how many people remember that, but I remembered it. I mean, that's a historic achievement
Mm-hmm.
for Jamaica swimming legacy at the Olympic Games. You competed in multiple events at the Olympic Games. You competed in the 200 meters
Mm-hmm.
and the 800-meter freestyle, the 400 and the 800-meter
Yep.
freestyle. Let us look at some of your other competitive, your other major championships. 2002 Commonwealth Games, you won a bronze medal in the 400-meter freestyle, marking Jamaica's first Olympic medal at swimming medal, sorry, at the Commonwealth Games. 2003 Pan American, you won two bronze medals in the 400 and the 800-meter freestyle. No, no, your lung's supposed to good, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. You are multi-time Central America CAC Games medalist. Let us talk about your collegiate career and achievement. You
Okay.
are for the University of Florida. You are 11-time All American.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's
Oh my
awesome.
God.
You also earned multiple SEC championship titles. Now, coaching, you're also into coaching, you're into commentating about sport. And for those of you who don't know, I met Janelle in Jamaica during the Olympic Games. When I was doing coverage of track and field, she was doing coverage of swimming, and that was how we met in Jamaica. And here she
Mm-hmm.
is tonight. Are you the head coach of Fairfield?
No,
Are you
I've closed the chapter on coaching altogether.
you're
I
not
actually work.
coaching anymore?
I do not coach anymore. Yep. I
Okay,
actually work within HR, which
okay. So
yeah has been
you have
wonderful.
contributed to the sport both in
Mm-hmm.
competing and also in coaching. But let me ask you something, coach. Coach, let me ask you something. I did my research, and an Olympic size pool is 50 meters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Janelle, for you to do a 400-meter, you have to wrap up that pool 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
Where you get the energy and the lungs to compete in a 400-meter, to swim in that pool up and down 8 times. Tell me a little bit about that strength.
Honestly, because you're not going from, I guess, 100% the entire 8 laps, right? There's a lot of the mental attitude of, okay, how am I going to break this down? At what point am I going to change gears? At what point am I going to start making a move? And it's all about strategy. And for me, it's one of those where when you're doing, when you're swimming like that, and with track and field, I'm sure it's the same thing where breath control is very important. The difference is that the breath control, you're in water. So you have to almost, especially as you're learning, I wouldn't even say learning how to swim, but getting more comfortable, like you have to almost kind of like calm yourself down while you're in the pool, and you can't almost like forcing hyperventilating or breathing too often too soon, because once you get off of that rhythm of breathing, what happens is that you start breathing quick, I guess like sooner than you really should, then that fresh oxygen isn't getting to the limbs, right? So for me, then what I would tell my athletes all the time is like, get in a pattern of breathing every 3 to 4 strokes. Anything more than that, you're going to start almost kind of locking up a lot sooner, and your legs and your arms are going to feel like lead. So it's more about consistency and keeping that pattern, no matter how tired you get, keeping up with that same consistency of breathing in, breathing out. And if you think about it, right? If you're sitting here and you're just talking, and every second you're inhaling, exhaling, you're making yourself more tired. as opposed to kind of like slowing down the breath and actually taking your time, 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, back and forth. And that's kind of how you have to, that lung capacity, because you're not holding your breath the whole time at all.
Right, right.
Um, but making sure that you're constantly in and out. Because almost like hold your breath for longer than you need to, your body starts panicking in a sense, being like, wait, when am I breathing again? And if you're not giving it that oxygen that it needs on a consistent basis, then that's where that panic starts to set in. That's where the fatigue starts to set in, and it's no bueno.
Well, now I see why Chris was swallowing water.
Yeah. You got too greedy with the air.
Yeah, yes, yes. He wasn't relaxing. But let me just ask you to describe just one event. Describe the
Mhm.
freestyle. How is the freestyle done? Because I mean, I hear these different. There's a freestyle. There's a backstroke. I kind of have an
Breaststroke,
idea. The
butterfly.
backstroke, you're on your back. The
Hmm.
butterfly. Just describe the freestyle for us a little bit.
So the freestyle is essentially you're rotating back and forth from side to side. So that's the one where you're here rotating, turning, and they're sometimes called the front crawl. That's, I mean, very elementary. But one of the biggest misconceptions of even swimming freestyle is that you're, basically just pulling your body through the water. What's actually happening is that, while you're moving each arm, you're actually rotating and using a lot of the core, and a lot of that stroke is coming from the core. And once you have the rhythm of the core, essentially like the arms are keeping up with it, and then you throw the legs in.
One of the things I admire about swimmers, the shoulders. I love the shoulders.
You can't
Is
have
it,
mine. I hate it. I hate
is
it
it
so
not?
much.
Listen, I love when I'm watching the Olympic Games and I see the swimmers come out in their outfit, and you see that shoulder is like a ruler. It is like a ply of board. It is straight from one side to the
Hmm.
other. Which event? Any swimming event that gives you that, I want to learn it now. Is it the freestyle?
I mean, unfortunately, all of it, but I would say usually the people with the widest shoulders are the butterflies.
Oh,
Usually.
the
Hmm.
butterfly. Oh, the butterflies go again. Show us that one just
That's where
quickly.
both arms come up and over at the same time.
Oh, you see that,
Yeah.
guy? The
So the picture in
butterfly.
back is when we're doing butterfly.
Listen, girl, I watch swimming just to see the shoulders. I'm not kidding you. I'm not
I remember
kidding.
you used to see when we met, you're like, I love your shoulders. I was like, you can have them.
Yes.
You can
Oh,
have them.
the shoulders. Oh my gosh. When you look at even Michael Phelps, I mean, you guys are chiseled. The shoulders. That's my
Yes.
favorite part. But before we go any further, the comments are coming in. Let us just read some more comments. Let me see. Trisha Gay Miller is saying, Janelle, you never fail to impress with your wealth of knowledge and passion about swimming. Indeed, she is well knowledgeable. This is why you're the best in my book. Indeed, indeed.
Thanks, bestie.
Andrea Bliss is saying Gators because she's a Gators, but she
That's
comes
right.
about Gators. Big up the Gators, of course. Mitchell Dansky is saying Janelle also kicked my ass as a swimmer, gave me mental toughness and more than a few laughs. That's what life is about.
It is.
That's
Yes,
what
one of
life
my
is
former
about.
athletes.
Lily Hodges is saying, Olympian Lily Hodges from Jamaica, Jamaican. She's saying, we are learning indeed, especially those of us who can't swim. I agree because right now I want to get those broad shoulders. So I'll be doing which one is it again? The butterfly.
Butterfly. It's the hardest one, so be
Do
ready.
it one more time. I love to see the butterfly. Do it one more. Do it one
So
more
arms
time,
up and over.
Janelle. Wow. Crazy stuff, crazy stuff, crazy stuff. Of course, Trisha Gay Miller is saying, "Go Gators." I told you guys tonight we will be here having fun and fun. But Jenny, let me ask you: when did you realize that you had it in you? When did you look at yourself, and you saw that your talent can go places? At what stage in your life?
If I'm being entirely honest, like I never actually felt like I could. And that's one of, I would say, my coaches, he passed away, my high school coach back in, actually during the Beijing Olympics. Um, that was one of the things that he would always tell me is like, you need to believe in yourself. And I never did. And that was kind of one of the hardest things, I'm sure, as a coach, to see an athlete with so much potential, just like not really believing that they were able or capable of doing amazing things. And, as I'm getting older now, it's like I look back and I hear, as you're talking about the accolades and everything, and, you know, going back and thinking back to, all these things is like, wow, I really did a lot of things. And you
You
know what,
did.
maybe if I did have a little bit of belief in myself, like maybe I could have been on the podium, and like all these little things that, it does eat at me as an adult now, but at the same time, it doesn't diminish the fact that I've still achieved so much with having so little, I would call it like support, I would say sometimes, from family. But, it's still, I'm still proud of the things that I've done. And, sometimes hearing some of these accolades and then thinking back, and I'm like, yeah, I was 17 years old when I went to my first Olympics and came fourth. I was 16 years old when, I had, won 3 Pan American, medals, which are like the highest and the most, I was the only person outside of, was it the US and Canada, I believe, that won a medal at those games. And it's like hearing some of those things and kind of putting it into perspective is almost kind of like a wow moment of, wow, I really did like a lot of things. And
You
even
did.
though I'm like, I'm in my 40s now, getting up there, you
Still
know.
young and fresh, girl. Stop it, stop it. And this is why I like doing this program, because I like to remind you guys of what you have done, because sometimes you may think that you have not done a lot for Jamaica, but and
Yes.
this is why I love data. Data never lies. You cannot, the data tells the story. And this is why I like to list your achievements, the accolades, just to
Yeah.
remind you guys that look, you have done a whole lot.
It
You were
feels like a
just,
lifetime ago.
yeah, you were, listen, when you finished, you did your semifinal and you set that national record. I mean, we
Hmm.
were back home screaming at the television for you. And
Yeah.
we did not tell the audience just now, but guys, she went back in the final, and she ran, I'm saying ran. She
You used to saying run.
Guys, in her semifinal, she clocked a national record and she came back in the final and lower that
Mhm.
national record. Listen to me, now, Janelle. You have done a lot for
Thank
our
you.
swimming. Believe me, you have done a lot. And I personally just want to thank you for your service. You have served us well from over here. But let us just talk about the future of Jamaica's swimming. Jamaica is
Mhm.
known for track and field at the Olympic level. That's what we do. Most of our glory comes from there and stuff. But do you see our swimming getting back to that level where we had swimmers in finals?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, right now, myself and Alia, and Sean are the only ones that have made, and not Sean also, Andrew Phillips, only 4 of us have made it to the Olympic final. And, Alia and we both came fourth, and that's the highest placing of any, I believe, Caribbean female athlete in
Mm-hmm.
swimming of all time. So, it's a huge, I guess, kind of like, I guess, accomplishment that I, wear very proudly, because it was, like I said, I did mine when I was 17 years old. I mean, most
Mm-hmm.
17-year-olds are not, that's not their focus.
Mm-hmm. True.
Um, so looking back at a lot of these things, again, it's almost like taking things into perspective. And I mean, those first Olympics were 24, 25 almost years ago. And that's why I say it feels like I have a whole other life, and I feel like I'm almost in my second chapter, essentially, of like, all right, no, there's life after swimming. But,
Yeah.
when it comes to the future of, Jamaica swimming, yes, there's always that, like, a couple of people who are up there, Sabrina Lane, right now, who is, doing amazing things at LSU under, Leah Martindale, who is another, Olympian for Barbados. She's also a finalist as well. Um, So there's hope there. But at the same time, I like to think of it in terms of like the Caribbean, because it's such a small community. It's not like track and field where, you're going with a team, right? With swimming
Mhm.
is usually like, 2, 3 people sometimes. And, so as I guess kind of like a region, we all latch onto each other and almost we call ourselves Team Caribbean at these games. But looking at the rest of the Caribbean as well, like there's so much talent, there's so much things going on. Jordan Crooks, who I don't know if anybody saw at the last Olympics, he made it to the finals in 100 and the 50. And you have other people who are coming up. Nikolai Blackman from Trinidad, who is at University of Tennessee with Jordan. Jordan's sister Jillian Crooks from Cayman Islands as well. There are so many amazing things happening in the Caribbean. And it's really for us to kind of pour their support behind not just Jamaica, but the entire Caribbean as well, because a medal for swimming is a medal for all of us, because it's not something that we've had a whole lot of.
Yes.
Obviously, Anthony Neste, George Pavel. But then it's kind of like, all right, now what, right? So we're always kind of like looking to the Caribbean for, more talent because it's there. Um, the next Jamaican person, it's interesting. There's so many people, but it's one of those where, what I personally would love to see is more people stepping up into the distance events, because there's so much potential in there for one. And it's like, you have someone who has done these things. Alia also, breaking out of the sprint freestyle and in the breaststroke route, so there's so many events, so many different things. And, one of the things that I would love to see even coaches in the Caribbean, and I'd say particularly in Jamaica, is
Mhm.
understanding more about distance swimming, because there's so much there that could be done that is just untapped. And yeah, maybe
Yeah.
one day I'll have a clinic down there.
Indeed. Yeah. But I heard that swimming is a very expensive sport. I mean, to condition athletes for any sport is costly, but I heard that swimming is very expensive. What was your support system like? I mean, your mother, your dad ensure that you were able to swim, but in what was your support system like? Did you have the resources, the money, the
You know,
sponsorship?
it's interesting, when people talk about how, expensive, the sport is. Okay, so you have to pay for pool time, but maintaining a pool is very expensive. You have to
Mm-hmm.
pay for a swimsuit. Yes, those tech suits, they're special suits that we wear in major competitions that you see, like, with the full or like the knee skin, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you see it come all the way up to the chest. I mean, those suits are like $400, but you can only wear them 2 to 3 times. So they don't have a very long shelf life.
Oh
So
wow.
yes, that aspect of it is very expensive. However, it's one of those where it's like, what are the other expenses that are different from track and field, right? You still have to pay the coach. You know what I mean? So I don't think that is necessarily the expense of it all, but
Mm-hmm.
the expense of it is that there's really no, I guess, kind of like spotlight glamour that comes with swimming, because swimming is so far down on the totem pole when it comes to
So
Jamaican
how can
sports.
we get it up there as a
Hmm.
people sticking to Jamaica now? How can we get more youngsters to want to swim? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you can get glory in any sport.
You can, and that's one of the things where it's like, do you want to take the road less traveled, or you want to, do what everybody else is doing? And that's kind of one of the hardest things, because even within swimming, like in Jamaica, I was a part of the technical committee for a while, and I remember hearing in one of the meetings how the officials were basically trying to get rid of the distance events because nobody wants to do it. And it's like, we mean nobody wants to do it? That's not your call. And it's like, oh, it's going to take too long, you're going this and that. That's not your call. At the end of the day, how do you expect the sport to be successful if you're limiting the events that the athletes can do? And then
Amen.
also, what would have happened if, when I was in that, you were cutting off the distance events? Now what? You understand? So it's like, it's one of those where like we're pushing for all these 50s and hundreds. No, go back to the 400 IM, go back to the 800, go back to the 400, get the foundations of all these things. Because I didn't come, when I left Jamaica and came to the US, I was a 200 freestyler, a 100 butterflyer, and a 100 backstroker. I can still the butterfly and backstroke very well. But when I went to the States is when a coach understood and saw like, oh, this girl, she can go and go consistently and keep going and keep going and keep going, and not even just swimming back and forth just because, swimming at a high speed and basically hitting pace after pace after pace after pace. If he hadn't seen that in me, where would I have been? Who
This
knows, right?
this that
I
you're
trust my
describing.
fought tooth and nail. I didn't want to do it.
This that you're describing is kind of one of the same problem that we have with track and field, especially track events.
Interesting.
Everybody wants to concentrate on the sprints.
Because
Nobody
there's
is
glory there.
there's
It's
nobody
so glory.
you can get glory in the 5,000 meters. You
Oh,
can get glory.
100%.
Yeah, you can
Nobody
get
cares
glory.
where you got the gold medal. Nobody cares what
Yeah,
event it is. It's
you
a
are.
gold medal.
There you go. And it's the same problem track and field is having. We're having track and field meet now, and the meet
Mm-hmm.
is stopping at the 400. Nobody wants to go 800, 1500 meters. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't do that, how are we going to develop that leg of the
Exactly.
sport and win medal globally? We can't.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
But
not
then
putting.
and then it comes down to the coaches, because are the coaches pushing for this to be a thing? Because really, where's it coming from? Is it the officials? Is it the coaches? Are the coaches educating themselves on these events to be able to find the athletes who can do these things? Because at the
Mhm.
end of the day, even then, when you're looking at, colleges getting athletics scholarships, they don't care. At the end of the day, if you can still do what you need to do, because even here in the US, sometimes you're looking at these athletes and they're like, oh, I want to be a sprinter because that's where you get, athletic scholarship. I was like, that's not true. Look at the different events, see where you fit in and see how your times actually like mesh up with their top athletes or something like that. And, with
Mhm.
swimming and track and field, it's pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
There's no gray area of, oh, team chemistry, this and that. No, this is my time. That's what I do. And it's faster than everybody else you have on your team. So you want me or you're not. And my son, he plays basketball, he does soccer, and he's in team sports. I know nothing about team sports. I can't do it. I can't rely on somebody else for my own. No, I don't have enough trust in other people, right? So in his instances, like he's looking at like, okay, but like, how do I get recruited? I'm like, I don't know, because it's not the same, right? Like it's not
It's
timed.
individual, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
challenging.
it is.
But when it comes to these distance events and everything else like that, there's opportunity in every single event. Now, do you want to create your own path and chart your own course, or you want to follow behind everybody else? But understanding, when you're following behind everybody else, that's a lot more competition. There's a lot more, I guess, kind of like room for you to fall between the cracks and to be ignored. Whereas if you're creating a path for yourself, nobody's getting in your way, and all of that is yours.
Well said. Well said. After you left university, of course, in high school and university, a lot of time the resources are there to train and be conditioned and everything. When you became pro, how were you able to fund your thing? Did you have a sponsor? Did you have endorsement? Was it mommy's
Well,
money?
well, actually, I forgot to answer one of your previous questions in terms of like where, the resources and like the support. So my parents split up at a very, I'd say, young age. I was in prep school. My father really and truly never came to any of my competitions.
Uh,
It is what it is. My mother was there, but she was more focused on my sister or my brother. So I'm a middle child. I definitely have middle child syndrome. I will never state otherwise. I am the forgotten, the unloved, just doing my own
wow.
thing. So, when I talked earlier about, not having the self-confidence, that was never instilled in me from either parent, because they were so concerned with themselves or with the other two siblings that, as I got older, they would kind of say like, oh yeah, when you never had to worry about because you were strong. And it's like, no, I was strong because you basically neglected me. Are you kidding me? And that was hard because here I am wanting some level of acceptance, some level of encouragement on any level, and I wasn't getting it. So as I moved to the US, and really just kind of like felt like I was completely on my own, because there was no one really to turn to ask for advice, to talk to, and kind of like share the frustrations that I was going through. That's kind of where the pool became my solace. And again, that's where I took out all of the frustrations of not getting the things that I felt that I could benefit from in any way, shape, or form. So that was challenging. And it's honestly, I feel like for me, it made me a better parent because I'm able to recognize the things that were lacking in my development and being able to do those things for my child. He would probably disagree and be like, no, you can literally back off.
So
But
let me ask,
I'm there.
so how did that make you feel about your parents? How were you able to relate to your siblings knowing that they're getting their attention and you're getting just a little bit? How did you navigate those different feelings towards your parents, towards your
So
siblings?
honestly, like, I never really spoke to either of them about it because, you know, everyone has their feelings. And, for me, if everyone is concerned about everybody else, and it's just like, all right, well, a lot of my, whether it's motivation and, the little self-esteem I had really came from me. And, that's one of the things I'll tell my athletes all the time of just like, you know, at the end of the day, you have to want it. I can't want it for you, right? And you have to be the person that is going after the things that you actually want. And whoever is in your way, whether they brother, sister, family, your coach, run me over, right? Because it's one of those where no one should be limiting your ability, your capacity, other than yourself. And if somebody else is coming in trying to tell that you can't do these things, move them away and step aside. So that was kind of for me one of the things where it was always if I really want this, the only person that can get it is me. So I need to do the things necessary to achieve the things that, whether I knew I wanted it or not, but I was in charge of my own destiny in a sense.
Wow. No, when you look back, you went through that. When you look back at everything, how do you feel now about the fact that your parents, they did not do, I don't want to say they did not do their part, but they did not do some of the things that you wanted them to do?
It's hard, but it's also one of those where, we're not close by any means. And, that's kind of how it happens because if you're not, to me, it's one of those where if you're not there to be with me in the trenches and like understand the sacrifices and, be there to provide assistance, support, etc., then you don't deserve to be there when I'm accepting the glory and the gold. And, that was hard for me because, my parents were there and they would walk around to everybody, oh, my daughter Olympia and da da da. And it's just like, all right, I guess you want to take some credit for, the things that you did. And, my mother did a lot more than my father did. I'll say that. And, she definitely had a lot of sacrifices and, did other things, but it still kind of remains that, the level of support, the level of instilling that confidence in me was never there. So I had to figure out on my own how to essentially get confidence. And it's still a work in progress. We're working on it.
Were you ever told that you would not have done what you have done?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'll say this, when I was younger, this is hilarious. I actually, most people or most kids are like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be this. I was convinced I was going to be Miss Jamaica. I don't know why. I had it in my head. I was like, I can do this. I am pretty, I am this. And I remember my parents literally laughing in my face, being like, yeah, no, no, no. And like, I had a pot belly, I had knock knees, I was so clumsy. But in my brain, I was just like, yeah, this is me. That's what I'm going to do. And, hearing those things over and over again of just like, you're ugly or you're this and that is like, it weighs on you. So that level of confidence essentially kind of like got stripped down and stripped down further and further. So as an athlete, as I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, my coach is looking at me and he's like, yo, you can be, this and you can do these things. I'm like, no, I can't. If my parents don't think I can do any of these things, why do you think I would listen to you when you
Mm-hmm.
barely even know me? You didn't raise me, you didn't birth me, you didn't do any of these things. So, to me, that was kind of like a lot of friction of being able to like see reality, but also hearing in the back of my head from my parents, you're not good enough and you'll never amount to, and, all of these things.
Wow. Wow. Mm. Wow. I'm speechless. Normally I'm not speechless, but I'm actually speechless now. But and I know that I asked you this question already, and I'm trying to ask it in different ways, and I've asked it already. But how do you feel now, honestly, as you look at me and I'm looking at you?
Yeah.
How do you feel now at this moment?
At this moment, I've pretty much just kind of, I don't know if forgiven is the word, but just kind of like push it aside and just, it's in a box in, the closet that I'm just like, I'll get to it when I get to it. I just know it needs to be thrown out. There's no, I guess, kind of like anger or heavy feelings. I've just kind of like separated myself from it entirely and really focused on the things that matter to me. And the things that matter to me right now are my son, my own livelihood, and my own happiness.
If you were to say something to your mother at this very minute, if your mother should call in on this program now and said, "Hi, my daughter," what would you say to her?
Absolutely nothing.
Wow, wow, girl, we.
I'm tough, I know.
No, I'm going to read a comment that somebody says. Let us just go to the comments and come back. Tony P is saying, "Hi, hail everyone." And he's saying, "Real talk, mama." As you hear that, you can know it's a Rasta man. That, big up Tony P. Yes, he's a Rasta. He said, "Sounds like you're a strong woman. Keep doing your thing." Trisha Gay Miller is saying, "And your journey made you an amazing friend." Marlene Green is saying, "Good night, all." Anthony Henry, you're a big fan tonight. He's saying, all right, let me just read what Anthony said. He said a few things. He said, "And you could have." He said, "You are so eloquent." Yes, she is indeed. And he's saying, "You are pretty." Of course, he's talking about comments on the stuff that you said earlier. And he's also saying the reality of Caribbean parents. My
Yeah,
parents believe I would not be studying medicine, and I am currently studying medicine. Why
love
must
that.
parents, of all the people in the world, why is it that it is our parents that is always telling us that we can't and we can't?
It's a thin line between that like tough love and like I understand. Like my son
Yeah,
tells
but
me
tough
sometimes I'm
love is
too harsh
one
on him.
thing. Tough love is one thing, but to tell your child that
Mm-hmm.
he or she is not going to come out to anything. I mean, I've heard those words myself. Because I wouldn't settle down at age 18, up to age 20 I wasn't settled. I mean, I was
Mm-hmm.
told that I am not going to come out to anything,
Mm-hmm.
and I am something today. So, when
Exactly.
you hear it from your own family, it's heartbreaking. It's
Mm-hmm.
heartbreaking. Uh Marlene Green is saying, "The great swimmer Janelle Atkinson." Indeed. Anthony Henry is also saying, "So where your parents lack sometimes, God steps in and provide the encouragement we need." And that is so true.
A
We
hundred percent.
children like us, who parents claim that they're giving the tough love, believe me, we
Mm-hmm.
are protected by God. Because
Yep.
sometimes when you hear these words from your parents, if it wasn't for God, maybe some of us would have killed ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds funny, but it is true. And parents need to stop telling their children that they can't and find a nicer way to something.
Yeah. A
Anthony
hundred
is,
percent.
yeah, indeed. Keisha Wignall is saying, "Love and respect to a strong, beautiful Jamaican queen." Indeed, indeed. A Jamaican queen, indeed. Anthony is saying, "I think they want to guard us from the heartbreak of having dreams and not being able to realize them." I don't know. I don't
There's a
know.
thin line though, where like I said, it's like yes, you can have some level of reality set in, but at the same
Mhm.
time, it's like, who are you to tell me that I
Yes,
can't achieve X, Y, and Z?
yes.
And, for me, it's one of those where Actually, my coaches in high school, I remember them saying, "Oh, oh, Janelle, I bet you can do this." And like to me, it was almost like I probably can, but I'm going to try. And I have to most of the time, 90% of the time, I did it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those were like triggers for me of just like you can't do that, you can't do that, and I think that to me almost like propelled me further. So in a sense, it's like as harsh as it was growing up, not hearing that positive reinforcement that was needed, it still almost kind of like pushed me to like do more. So I don't agree with it by any means, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, even with my child now, he wants to pursue basketball. It's not my life. So if that's what he wants to do, all I can do is support and do the things that, I never had as a child, to pour into him and be able to support him. I'll show up to his games and I'm in there, yelling and screaming and, cheering for the team. And, for me, it's one of those where like I'm doing the things that I know I would have wanted and would have, I guess, kind of like made me even more successful. But that's not to say that the things that were done or have weren't done, not I think it's kind of like gotten in the way of me completely being successful, because
Yeah.
I feel like I have been successful in the pool and everything else.
You have. But let me ask you something. Were you one of those little girls when you have a swimming competition? Were you one of those kids who would look for your dad in the crowd if he was there before you get into the pool?
Well, my dad was never there, but I would usually hear my mother. So my sister and I are a year and change apart. We're a year and 9 months apart. So the way that the age groupings would work, 9 to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, etc., it usually meant that my first year in the age group, when I've aged up, would be her second year in the age group. So we always had 1 year of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my sister's name also started with a J, and a lot of times, like you know, we would be in the same heat. And I remember being in, the different heats or, whatever, the same heat as my sister, and I would hear my mother yelling, "Okay, let's go, Jalandre.
And you don't hear your
Yeah,
name.
you have another child in this race."
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
and as a kid, that was hard. And I remember the first time that I beat her in an event, which was my best event, butterfly at the time, and that was her worst stroke. And swam the race. I end up winning. She, I think, came like third or something like that. So I beat her basically. And we're walking back and we're walking towards the cool down pool. And my mother was there. She's crying. And I'm walking up, I'm like, "What's going on?" And who told me to ask her? My mother yelled at me. I was like, "Get out of here, leave." And I was like, "No, what's going on?" Like, and it dawned on me, I was like, "Is it because I beat you in my best event and your worst event? It's not that big of a deal. You beat me all the time." And yeah, she screamed and cursed at me. And I was like, "Okay, I
Wow.
understand where I land on this now." So those things were hard as a kid to hear and like to
Must have been
it's
very difficult.
extremely difficult. But I mean, it's one of those where like it made me have super tough skin. Maybe I could be a little softer in my old age, but that's kind of life has hardened me to these things. So it's like, this person that's supposed to be, loving and supporting and etc. You're seeing it happen to other people, to like my sister. So it's like it's not that she's incapable of, it's just that okay, she's incapable of doing it for me. And that's a hard thing to, I guess, kind of like sit with. But that's life.
Wow, that's tough. That's tough. I watch tennis. I used to watch tennis a lot, especially when Serena and Venus were playing. And I remember when Serena and Venus they were playing at the Grand Slam final, and their mother she was sitting in the stand. And let me tell you, the mother I don't know how she do it, but she maintained her. You could not tell which of them was her favorite.
Mm-hmm.
You could not tell that she had a favorite. And it for those who watch tennis, Venus, I hate when Venus and Serena meet in the semifinal.
Yeah, it's
And they
hard.
used to meet in the semifinal a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very, very close. And I've seen them at the final, and their mother is there, and she maintained her composure when the ball and the camera. Some of these cameramen are so evil. When they were playing
Yep.
against each other, the ball going, the cameraman was on the mother, and
Mm-hmm.
she just sat there under her shade watching her two girls, and she had
Yeah.
to give them the same. Oh my God. Janelle, I am just so sorry. You're a big fan. Anthony Henry saying, so sorry. He's saying that he's so sorry
It's
that
okay.
it's heartbreaking hearing this, but I'm glad that you're getting an opportunity to. Have you ever told this story on camera?
No.
Well, I'm the first one. I feel very lucky tonight. I feel very lucky,
The
but
secret's out.
yeah, I'm very happy that you're able to talk about it so openly, and of course the audience, there with you. And Jamaican parents are can be they're different. That is all I'll say.
They're tough.
Yeah, I have two, and they're tough. Marlene Green is saying, "What a thing, so sad." Indeed. But let me ask you.
Mhm.
What kind of advice would you give young swimmers in Jamaica who wants to trod this path, who want to compete at the highest level at the Olympic Games, and what would you tell them, especially the girls?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where it all stems from how bad you yourself want it, because no one else can want it for you. And, that's one of the hardest things of, having that mental strength to push past the setbacks, push past, the hurdles,
Mhm.
and, really stay focused on what it is that you want to accomplish. And, once you're zeroed in and focused on that, like nobody can tell you otherwise.
Yeah,
And that's one of the hardest things because things happen, setbacks happen. I remember before the Sydney games, I got really sick. I had what's called sinusitis during my Christmas break. So this is like December time. I was out to the pool for 2 full weeks. Like that was the most sick I've ever been. So when I went back to school, it was almost kind of like a slow process of like trying to get back into it because my breathing was off, was sick, etc. And like the muscle memory, even though it's there, like I'd lost a lot of
yeah,
muscle itself. I went to Carifta Games that April in Barbados, and still one high point, still did my thing, but I didn't necessarily break as many records as I had the year before. I was like, a little off on some events, whatever. And I remember a reporter was there and he was doing an interview and he was like, yeah, so I mean, it sounds like you're, on the way basically downhill now. And I was like, excuse me? And he's like, yeah, I mean, like you already hit the peak and it seems that you're coming down. And again, this is in April. I have Olympics coming up in September. And to me, it was almost kind of like, first of all, who are you? Second of all, you didn't even ask me why it is that I'm not in the top
yeah,
form that I typically am in. And I'm also not preparing for this meet because I have bigger fish to fry months down the road at the Olympics, my first Olympics that, I'm hoping to just essentially go and have our best time. So, hearing something like that from an outsider who doesn't know you, to me at that point, I was already like, you can't tell me none because you don't know my story. You have no idea what I am preparing for. You have no idea what my training has been like coming into this meet. So who are you to tell me that I'm not going to achieve anything coming up to these games? And obviously I
hmm
proved him wrong,
hmm
but it was one of those where had I been someone that took those things to heart, I'd have been like, oh my gosh, maybe that is the end of my career and that's as
maybe it's
good as
time
I'm
to
going to get,
retire.
and it's time to exactly. I mean, he
Mhm.
basically told me it's time to retire. And I'm 17 years old. So yeah, no.
Yeah, you're definitely right. Sometimes fans, our family, our friends, the
Hmm.
media, sometimes those
Yeah.
people are the worst people. I swear to you. But let me ask you this. If you could go back, if you could have a conversation with your younger self, what
Hmm.
would you tell your younger self? Woo!
I have some explicit words, but I won't say them.
Please don't.
So get it together. No, honestly, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, it really, be more about instilling some of that confidence. Because I never thought that I could have achieved half the things that I have achieved. And the more that I learn about, the things that I accomplished and how big of an impact it had on the sport, on the country, on, youngsters, it means a lot to me because it's one of those where it's like, oh, so everything that I was doing, even though at the time was more me doing it out of frustration, it helped motivate other people and it helped other people see themselves in me. So, when I was, a youngster, there was nobody that looked like me that was swimming. There was
Mhm.
no person of color. I remember my role model growing up was an American singer named Janelle Atkinson. And the only reason was because she had the same name as me. That was it. Because that was the closest thing that I could come to connecting with somebody. And you know, being able to tell my younger self these things now of just like, listen, stay the path, believe in yourself, because that's the biggest thing that's going to hold you back from really achieving the things that you can. Even if you don't really believe that you can do it, like it's there.
Mhm.
Those are one of the things that I would tell her, and honestly to any younger swimmer of just like, listen, it all starts with a strong sense of self. If you
Yeah.
don't have that, then you'll crumble for anything.
Indeed, indeed. Let us talk about life after the finish line. After you're finished competing, what was the transition like from being an athlete and becoming a coach?
So after I graduated from college, I majored in tourism management, and that's what I wanted to pursue, a career in tourism. I actually got a job at Embassy of Jamaica in DC, and um, really I enjoyed myself and I learned some things, but it was challenging because I felt like sometimes the only reason why I got the job was because of who I was. And then it was almost this stigma of like, okay, well, you're an athlete. It's like, well, yeah, that means I work hard. But it's almost kind of they didn't trust me to really do anything other than just like menial tasks. And I was like, well, I don't want to be in a type of situation where I'm just like here just because of my name. Like, put me to work. I want to do things. I want to learn. I
Mhm.
want to grow. I want to do all these things. And, came to a point where I was just like, I don't feel like I'm going to be able to grow in this type of position. So I ended up going back into, was invited to coach actually Sean Bryn was a head coach at Wright State University at the time, and he had a position opening. He's like, "Yeah, you want it?" And I was like, "Okay." So, at the time, I was engaged to Maurice Wignall, who is an
Which we're
Olympic.
going to talk about?
Yeah, so we'll get to that. So we moved to Ohio, and that's kind of where coaching, really started for me. And it was more one of those where I have so much knowledge of the sport and so much knowledge, especially from a distance standpoint, because the downside even in the Caribbean, to me, and even to an extent in the US, there's a lot of coaches that don't understand how to coach distance. And it's just, mileage, right? Okay, as long as I give them a whole heap of miles to swim, they should be good. And it's like, no, there's so much more technique involved in it. There's the breathing aspect of it, there's the stroke aspect of it, there's the, understanding the different gears and the different, changes in speed that is necessary. They still need to have some speed. They can't just be swimming at a regular pace back and forth all the time because that's not how racing happens. So, for me, it was almost kind of like an opportunity to educate people and essentially share the knowledge that I had. At the time, I'd mentioned my coach had passed away, so I learned so much from him as an athlete because he was the first person to really like actually believe in me and see me as a person and see me as someone who could achieve all these things. And I'm eternally grateful for him because without him I don't even know. But he's really the person that really started planting that seed in my head of like, no, Janelle, you could really be amazing at this sport. No, Janelle, you have the ability to be on this podium. Before the Pan Am Games in 99, he said those things to me and I was like, no, I'm just going to like I'm going. That's it. I'm going to
Going
compete.
to
I'm going to
enjoy
have a best time.
yourself.
I'm going
Mhm.
to, learn all the things and, like rub elbows with these famous people. And I end up leaving the games with 3 silver medals. So He knew
Amazing.
what he was talking about. So yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
Hmm.
Did you ever use the beach as your training ground? Like go to the beach
Mm-mm.
and swim like a mile?
Listen, I'm a snob when it comes to open water. I don't like things touching me. I don't. No,
But
thank you. I've
but
been
Janelle,
stung
you're
by
in pool.
jellyfish twice. A pool and the
Oh,
ocean are two totally different things. Yeah, no, thank you. I have done open water swims. Do I love them? No, but I will do them from time to time. But it does still kind of like scare me because people have unfortunately died in open water races. So it can be very unsafe, but at the same time too, for me it's more about people touching me, the scratching, the organisms in the water, like
in the water.
jellyfish. I would
Mm-hmm.
rather get bitten. Well, I'd take that back. I don't like jellyfish at all.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't like when they
They're
sting
not
me.
nice.
No, I've been stung by a jellyfish twice in my life, and I'm good. I'm set. I am golden. So for me to take myself up and put myself where the jellyfish are to get possibly stung, hard
No,
pass.
no way. Here's my next
I will do
question.
it, but I just don't want to.
Here's my next question. When you learned about the rise of Alia Atkinson, your sister, according to most people in Jamaica, tell me about your reaction. Come, I'm going to tell you a story. People convinced me that Alia was your sister, and
They're still
even
trying to convince me that I'm sisters with her, and I'm like, no, no.
I was talking to somebody just yesterday and I told him that you'll be on my show. And I think Alea's name came up. And no, the person said her sister. And I said, no, they're not sisters. And just yesterday, somebody learned that you and Alea are not sisters. Tell me about that. When you heard
You
that
know,
Alea was your sister, what was your reaction?
So I've actually known Alia for a very long time, and she has had an older brother. He passed away unfortunately, named
Wow.
Adi. So Adi and my brother Javan are the same age. So when we were going to like Cariftas, to ISC, CC Can, Adi would be there as well as my brother. So oftentimes, like people just assume, okay, Atkinson must be the same. First of all, if anybody takes up a phone book in Jamaica and flips through Atkinson, there are so many Atkinsons in there. We are not all related. So with Ade, we used to have this joke all the time, but like, oh, little brother, big sis, whatever. And it was funny. And then as we got older, my first Olympics was actually Alia's first Olympics, or my last Olympics was her first Olympics, excuse me.
Yes. Hmm.
So again, it's one of those where we've known each other for a very long time. I've swam with her brother, I've swam with her, so it wasn't surprise, who is this person with the same name as me? We've known each other and like we've joked about it all the time. And then it came a point where I think it was after the London games when she came fourth as well. Where I was like, oh no, people like for real think we're related. Like I need to
Hmm.
like stop
Hmm.
because for me it's one of those where like the way that I saw it, I've had my opportunity to shine. I've had my flowers. I've had my 5 minutes of fame. Let her have it and leave me out of it. So during that games, I constantly was like, no, we're not related. We're not related because it's not fair for her to, have these
Be in
accolades and
your
always
shadows.
be in exactly. And it
Hmm.
frustrated me because as someone who's always been in other people's shadow, I'm like, I wouldn't want that for myself. So for me, it was always the educate me. Or like, no, no, we're actually not related. I used to get a proper cuss off from people. Be like, you can't tell me nothing. You're from Jamaica. She's from Jamaica. No swim have same last name. Of course, no must be related. It's like that makes sense. That really makes sense. So you tell me is that people who have the same last name as Clark and they're both on the track, they're just automatically related.
People convinced me that you guys were sister. When she first burst on the scene, people were like, "Is she, that Janelle younger sister is also swimming for Jamaica?" I'm like, what? I was convinced, and I think it was more like the name, and I think you guys are slightly resembled too. That
I hear that, and I guess, but like not really.
Yeah, yeah. You guys have some similar features, and then you have the same name, and then the both of you swim, and it's like all those
Yeah.
pieces come together. But it's good that you embrace her though, and
Oh, of course, I support
yeah,
100%, and I think she has done amazing things for the country
she
and
has.
has really kind of like taken a step further. It would have been nice to have finally have a medal, but at the same
Mhm.
time, like I'm
Yeah.
sure her and I are sitting there waiting and chomping at the bit for, hoping honestly that Jamaica is the one that gets the first swimming female medal.
Right, indeed, indeed. A little personal now. The swimmer and the track star. The swimmer and the track star. Tell me a little bit about that, guys. She was married to a track star. I'm not going to tell you who it is. If she wants to tell you, she can tell you.
I
But
kind of already did, so
how did that happen? You're in the pool, he's on the track. How was that link? You guys would not be training in the same space, in the
no,
same area,
we're not the
so
same age.
not the same age. I mean, how?
Honestly, I mean, when you're at these games, like you get to really know everybody else, right? So the first games that we actually met was at the Commonwealth Games in '03, in Manchester. And, it was more just kind of like, it's very few, I guess, kind of like competitions that, the swimmers and the track and field athletes and other sports are there. So like Pan Am's, Commonwealth, Olympics, obviously, CAC, um, yeah, I think that might be it. So those few opportunities, that's the first time that the swimmers really have an option to be a part of a full team. Because like I
Mhm.
said, normally, it's like, 3 to 4 of us, maybe if we're lucky, and that's it. So the
Do
first
you
time,
guys stay in the same camp, like as
yes.
the Jamaican team, the swimmers and the other
Hmm.
athletes, along with track athletes? Okay, so you're not
Yeah.
separated. Okay.
We're not separated. The only time we're separated is that we have different training camps. So we usually
Mhm.
don't go to the same place. Jamaica goes, track goes somewhere else, swimming goes somewhere else, and then, same as like when shooting is involved or sailing, it's
Cycling
different
or
places, right?
boxing. Yeah. Mhm.
Because it's really about finding somewhere that has the means to develop our sport. So wherever track goes may not have a pool, so we're going somewhere that we know we can get pool space, pool time, etc. So
Mhm.
when we show up to the games to check in, that's kind of like where we see each other, meet each other, and kind of get to know one another. So we met each other at the Commonwealth Games, and then the very next year was the Athens Games, and really connected. He had made the finals that year, and came. What's it? Yeah, he was fourth actually,
The
and
audience wants to know who is he.
he is Maurice Wignall, the sprint hurdler for Jamaica.
Woo, Mr. Wignall, wherever you are, good night, sir. Good morning, good evening. Hold that thought, Janelle. Anthony Henry, your big fan tonight, he's saying it's Maurice Wignall. And he said, to be honest, I can see the partnership. You guys have similar personalities. Trisha Gay Miller is saying they almost convinced me. I think she's talking about you and Alia being sisters
Yeah,
and stuff. So Henry seems to know everything about Janelle tonight. He is just all
I
up.
mean he's my super fan.
Yeah, he's a super fan, so he would know. He would know. But continue with your thoughts.
Yeah, so we actually connected, at that games and like, had multiple conversations and, he was sharing with me his frustration. He's like, oh, you don't understand. I was like, I don't. I was like, I was fourth. It was 4 years ago, but I was fourth as well. So, we really connected on that level as like athletes and
You both
understanding that,
connected on finishing fourth.
yeah, it's a very miserable place to be.
I know. I've heard it. I've heard it. I've heard it.
Because it's the whole thing is like you want to be on the podium, and most people are like, oh no, second place is the worst. And like, no, it's not,
No,
because you still
fourth.
get a medal. Fourth
Yeah.
place, like you don't even you get a pat on the back or a high five. It's same as
Yeah.
someone who got 85th. It's the same thing.
Mhm.
So it's it's a different kind of feeling to be fourth, because then you start thinking in your head of like, okay, what could I have done differently? Where did I, like, what did I change, and what didn't quite mesh on that day? And like, with his events, I almost kind of feel like it's worse because he did a sprint hurdle. So I mean, it came down to the line, you know what I mean? So I understand those things, and just like you said, like, it wasn't by a whole lot that I came fourth either. So
Mhm.
you have your entire lifetime to really start to think about, and I don't know, like, really question yourself of like, what did I do wrong? And the interesting thing with my race is that the person who actually came third in the Sydney Games got busted for drugs and got a suspension from the sport, but they never took
So
her medal away.
why weren't you upgraded?
Don't know,
That doesn't make sense.
but it doesn't, and that's another thing that kind of like, it frustrates me when we talk about or like when you hear about like drug cheats and whatever. It's just like,
Mhm.
but if you knew that she had a positive drug test and you suspended her, then like,
Why is she at the game?
why right, why is she at the games? Why does she still have a medal? Why does she still get credit? But honestly, even at this age now, it's like, even if I were to get upgraded, I've still been robbed of the entire experience.
Yes,
And
yeah. And
would
plus,
would there have been other doors that opened for me when I was
yeah.
17, and would I have still been swimming now? Or I wouldn't be swimming now, let's be honest.
Plus
But
you would also have been robbed of earnings, revenue.
100%, yeah. I mean, I don't know what kind of earnings and revenue in swimming,
Yeah,
but we'll pretend.
endorsements. Yeah,
We'll pretend.
endorsements and stuff like that. You would have been robbed.
Hmm.
But Max, tell us a little bit about Max, the love of your life.
The love of my life,
Yes.
the apple of my eye.
Oh yes, my
No,
dear.
Max is amazing, and for both myself and his father, like, he has some crazy athletic genes, which I think sometimes he unfortunately kind of weighs as a burden because we've both achieved so much, and he also wants to make a name and create an identity for himself. And that's one of the things when we were married, always said like we want to shield him as much as possible from, without sounding bad, like the Jamaican kind of like media of like, which sport, what him going to do, this and that, and
Is he going
putting
to swim? Is he going
expectations
to
on
do
him.
track? Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, he does track, but it's more just kind of like a for off season training, so he does the high jump, he'll do a couple, 100, 200, he might try the long jump this year, so, but it's one of those things where his passion really lies in basketball, and he's slowly starting to make a name for himself. But basketball is tough, and that's kind of one of the things where I didn't love it when he proclaimed that as his sport, because I
Mhm.
knew how challenging it would be, how competitive it is, but at the end of the day, like I always say, like, I want him to chart his own path. And
Yes.
what kind of parent would I be if I'm telling him, no, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or whatever? It's not my life.
Yeah.
And if I listen to other people telling me that I can't and shouldn't, etc., I wouldn't have achieved half the things I've achieved.
Wow. Indeed, indeed. Does he know that his father goes by the name Mr. Smooth?
He does.
He
He
does.
does. And
Awesome.
well, he between Mr. Smooth and Wiggy.
Wiggy, indeed, 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 indeed. So he knows about the Jamaican food, the patois,
Oh
the
yeah. He's gone to
okay.
Jamaica many times, and spent summers with his father in Jamaica. That was one of the biggest and most important things to me when we split, of ensuring that he was still involved in the culture and understood his roots, and understood essentially kind of like where he's from. um you know because at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't have a strong sense of who you are and where you come from,
Mhm.
then who are you and what do you stand for?
Yeah, indeed, indeed. With that said, guys, I mean, Janelle, I love this interview. I'm enjoying myself. But before we go any further, we're going to another segment now where we're just going to educate and play a little bit and stuff like that. But before we go any further, just to say, guys, welcome again if you're just joining us. we're not too far from wrapping up, but we're still here. And Janelle Atkinson, we're looking at her legacy tonight, her contribution to Jamaica Olympic legacy and Jamaica swimming legacy. And she's here tonight, unfiltered, just telling us as it is. And of
Feeling
course,
all the tea.
oh yes, she is. She is. And this is exclusive, guys. She has never done this before, so it is very special over here. And of course, her fans and Anthony more than anybody else is enjoying himself. Anthony is saying all he needs to do is prioritize mastering the basics. Even if he doesn't make it at the as a top player, he would be an excellent coach or um,
Hmm.
journalist or analysis. And that's the beauty about sport. It is not just
Absolutely.
about playing on the field of play, but there's so many other areas. You can become a journalist, you can become an analyst, you can
Hmm.
become a broadcaster, you can become an agent, a manager, a masseuse. Oh my God, I'm tired.
Yes.
There's so many things that you can do. And also, we want to say welcome to Akia Webster from Trinidad and Tobago. She is in the house and she's saying, hello, guys, great program. Thank you very much, Miss Webster.
Thank
From
you.
our neighbor from Trinidad and Tobago, who will be hosting the Carifta Games this year. She's here. And of course,
Yes.
Marlene Green is saying, great interview. Janelle, thank you for sharing with us indeed. And remember, guys, please to like and share and subscribe and spread the legacy. This channel is about Jamaica's legacy, track and field legacy, swimming legacy, Olympic legacy, all the legacies that you can think about. It is here, and Janelle, of course, made herself available. And let me tell you a little story. When I met her in Jamaica, she was actually having breakfast. We were staying at the same hotel and she was having breakfast. Let me tell you, with my bright self, we just walk up to her and say, are you Janelle Atkinson, the swimmer? And she was so receptive. She said yes, with a bright smile, She, she said yes, and we just hit it off and started talking. And of course,
We did.
she joined us where we were doing the coverage. And of course, she was on set for a little bit. And this is what I like about my athletes. I love the athletes. This is what we do. This is my thing. So Janelle, big up yourself, Janelle. And now we are going to go into the next segment. I'm going to ask you some questions and you answer. So my first
Oh
one
boy.
is, if you were to swim against a male swimmer, who would it be?
Swim against them and win.
Well, I don't know about winning enough because these men in the pool, they are very deadly. But which male swimmer would you want to swim against? Whether you win, lose, or draw.
Ugh.
Before you
That's. I
answer
mean, it's
that,
hard.
and think about it, Anthony, yeah, let me mention this. Anthony Henry was actually on my set when you were there. He was just
Ah,
reminding me,
yes.
yes, he was one of the track and field analysts, and he said, yes, both of us HP. Yes, and I don't know if you remember, but he was the one smiling from ear to ear.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that's him. That's him there. So let us go back to our question. If you were to swim against a male swimmer, who would it be? Win, lose, or draw?
That's, and I say it's hard because with swimming, it's basically, for the most part, it's a co-ed sport where we train with each other all the time. So
Cool.
I basically swam with everybody. Ryan Lochte was a huge, was a big teammate of mine at University of Florida. So, he's probably one of my favorites for obvious
Mm-hmm.
reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But he and I used to train with each other all the time, where I'd, be racing him while he's doing backstroke and I'm doing freestyle. We'd push each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I feel like there's no one that like surprises me or excites me in a way. I was like, I would put on a swimsuit and race them.
All right
Um,
then. Have you ever met Michael Phelps?
I have.
Oh, you
Not
have.
a fan.
Cool. Say that again.
Not a fan. And listen, he did amazing things for the sport, but for me, it's one of those where I feel like he could have done a lot more to elevate the level of, I don't know, giving back in a sense. Like giving back is always something that's important to me. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, especially as it comes to, Ryan Lochte and Michael Phelps are always pegged against each other, right?
Mm-hmm,
So it's
mm-hmm.
one of those where it's like Ryan was one of my teammates at Florida, so I would never go against him. So it's almost kind of like an automatic, like, no, Team Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
110% every day,
Automatic, automatic. If you were
automatic.
to do a track and field event, which event would it be? Which event would it be if you were to do a track and field event?
So that's when Maurice and I were married. He actually tried to teach me hurdles, and I
Oh
thought
my,
it was very cool. I did. No, listen, I cannot run, and like I said before, I'm very clumsy. I am not
but
calibrated for land activities.
Janelle, if you cannot run, how you practicing hurdles? Man,
I
love
didn't.
is a
I didn't.
powerful
I didn't say
thing.
I went over any of them. I said I would try and practice.
Oh my
No,
God.
but I think honestly, and one of my good friends from University of Florida, Sekou Clark, which I'm
Yeah,
sure
Sekou.
many of you know
Oh
him.
yes, yes, we
He
know
would
Sekou.
always convince me. He's like, "Yo, Janelle, you should try pole vault." And I'm like, "The hell, no! I don't like heights. That looks very dangerous." So I would say, if any event, it would be long jump.
Long jump.
Long
Cool,
jump. I wouldn't
cool.
get very far, but I tried.
Cool. Nothing is wrong with long jump. We have a very, very rich history in the
Yes.
long jump at the highest level, the Olympic Games. Which
Mm-hmm.
other sport do you like or support?
Do I like?
Hmm.
I always say, and I've said this multiple times when I'm doing the broadcasting, especially during the Olympics, like I really enjoy watching the rowing. And I feel
Oh,
like had I been probably like 10 years younger, I would come back as a rower. But
awesome.
I'm past my prime.
Awesome. Listen to this now. I want you to name as many of the finalists who were in the 400-meter freestyle at the Sydney Olympic Games where you missed out barely on a medal. Name as many as you can. Don't
Oh,
worry, I'll
shit.
help you.
All right. Brooke Bennett, obviously.
Right? She
Diana
won
Munt.
gold. Who
Diana
else?
Munt was second.
She was second.
Claudia Pole was
Was
third.
third.
We'll put the
Mhm.
asterisk there.
Who was fourth? Who was fourth?
This one.
Indeed, indeed. You have four more to go. But your brain is very good. Your memory is good.
Listen, that race haunts me. I've never watched it.
You've never watched it? No, you should go back.
No.
You should go back
I think I
and
know how it ends.
who were the other four in that race?
Ooh.
I'll give you a clue. Russia was there, Germany was there, the Netherlands and China. Those are the other four countries. Russia, Germany, Netherlands, and China. So in that final, you had USA, Costa Rica, Jamaica, Russia, Germany, Netherlands, and China. You don't remember anybody else after the fourth place finisher? Okay,
Nope.
so we had the person that finished fifth was from Russia. Her name is what's this name? I'm going to try and pronounce it, and then you pronounce it for me because I know you know these names.
No,
Uh,
what's funny is that I've never raced against any European countries before
never.
those games. Never,
Wow.
because it's only been, remember, it's Pan Am Games and all,
Yeah,
CAC and all
and the
Caribbean. So
Commonwealth.
anything outside of, I guess, like the Americas and
Yeah,
the Commonwealth, no idea.
yeah. So those four countries were Russia, Germany, Netherlands, and China. Now for the next part of the game.
Hmm.
You are going to tell me something about you, and then I am going to tell you something about you. You go first.
Oh, that's hard. Something about me.
Something about, and then I am going to tell you something about you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have two tattoos.
You have two tattoos.
I have two
Okay.
tattoos. I'm
Okay.
a
You have two,
rebel.
so you have two tattoos. She's a rebel, guys. You have two tattoos. Okay. You won triple silver medals at the 1999 Pan Am Games. You go again.
Mm.
Go again, Miss Two Tattoos.
Um, my My niece and nephew call me Nelly.
Nelly. Wow.
Nelly, that's one of my nicknames.
Auntie Nelly.
Auntie Nelly.
Go Auntie Nelly. Okay, my next one is you competed in the 200 meters, the 400 meter, the 200 and the 400 meter freestyle at the Athens Olympic Games 2004. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Awesome. Okay, your turn again.
What else is there? I really enjoy cooking, and I think I'm good at it.
Oh, you're
My son says I'm good at it. He likes my
nice.
cooking.
You can cook curry chicken. That's nice.
Of course.
Okay, my next one is you are not related to Alia Atkinson.
Yes, let's make that one crystal clear for the folks in the back that still don't know.
Yeah, she's not related to Alia Atkinson, guys. They're just teammates with the
Yes.
same name and do the same sport. Okay, your turn again.
Okay. My biological grandfather on my mother's side is 100% Chinese.
100% Chinese.
100% Chinese.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. 100% Chinese. So what was grandma do? So was it grandma who was in China?
No, his family moved to Jamaica and met my grandmother, and they had my mother.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. 100% Chinese. So you are Chinese and African. Cool.
And Indian.
And Indian. Cool.
And there's a lot more European influence in there, but I don't know the breakdown.
Oh yeah. We're very mixed up with that. You were named Jamaica Swimmer of the Year for 7 consecutive years, from 1999 to 2003. Is that correct?
That is correct.
There you go. Your turn again.
I was named the National High School Swimmer of the Year in the United States in my senior year of high school.
Cool. Awesome. My next one was going to be you have a bachelor's degree in tourism and hospitality management, but you did say that. So your turn again.
I have a master's degree in organizational leadership from the Arizona State University.
How did I miss that in my research? Okay, cool. Your middle name is Anaya Monique. That's
Anya Monique.
Anya Monique. Cool.
Yes.
My research is going well.
It's going well. It's going pretty well.
Yeah,
so my initials are JAMA, and so everybody at University of Florida, no one called me Janelle. Everyone just knows me as Jama. And
Jama.
Yep.
Let me tell you, one thing I know about us Jamaicans, we're more popular with our alias than our real name. Jama. Do your thing. My next one is your zodiac sign is Libra.
I am to the core. All about the balance.
Okay, your time again.
One more.
There? No, you're going to go one. I have one last one, and then one more. That is what you call it now? Yeah. While you think about that, Anthony Henry is saying, just watching this episode is encouraging me to go back to watching swimming. Wow.
Why did you leave?
Wow. I tell you, man, Janelle. What an influence Janelle have on my audience. Go ahead,
I'm turning everybody into swimming fans.
Yes, turning.
That's my plan.
Girl, the only one, as I said, I want the broad shoulders. I'm going to do the butterfly. And before you leave, you have to do the butterfly again. So it's your turn to go again, and then my turn, and then your turn.
I don't know what else is there. I mean, I feel like I've shared quite a bit.
You don't know what is there about you? Okay, the next one I had was you were married to Maurice Wignall, but of course we spoke about that.
Yes.
And one last one for you. You will have the last say about you?
Uh, I don't even know what else is there.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't
I've
worry
shared
about it.
so much. I feel my
Yes,
whole soul is open.
yes, you shared a lot, and let me tell you, I appreciate it because sometimes we watch the television and we see you guys compete and we don't know the
Mhm.
backstory, and sometimes fans can be very, very critical of the athletes,
Yes.
and sometimes when you guys don't perform at the level
Hmm.
that we think you should, of course, but sometimes so much is happening behind the scene that we don't know. And of course, you guys keep pushing, even with the negative comments. Sometimes you
Yeah.
guys will still push and you still push and you make the country proud. So, is there anything else that is of vital importance that we did not touch on that you would like to share?
I think we touched on everything.
Wow, wow, I'm that good. I'm that good. Guys, she said we touch on everything. But just before we go, just say a final word to our young swimmers who are looking to do great things, because I heard that we have some young swimmers who
Yeah.
are doing well, but of course the finances are very, very tight.
Hmm.
Just give them a word of encouragement before we go.
I mean, at the end of the day, as I said before, you're in charge of your own destiny and it's your life. If you have a dream, chase after it no matter what. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise, because it's your life to live and your dream to have and your dream to accomplish.
With that said, guys, I could not have said it better. And guys, thank you very much for being here tonight. Andrea Bliss, she's another Gator. She's just so why you Gators are just so,
We stick together.
Yes, I realize that. And I love that. I love that. And Bonnie M, 1972 Olympian, is saying, this was such a great interview. It is good to learn about different sport. I'm loving every aspect of it. And thank you very much
Love
for
it.
saying that. And I enjoy it myself. And I have to say, Janelle, it was very authentic.
Thank you. I
Very,
try.
very, very, very authentic. And thank you very much for, letting us into your life a little bit and just to let us learn about your journey, where you've been. And I hope that you have overcome a lot of things that were going on during
Hmm.
that time. You're a Jamaican queen. You have done also well in the pool, setting national record over national record. And man, you choose events. We talk about the 400-meter
Hmm.
freestyle, but we didn't even talk about the 800. Who chooses the 800? I mean, that's like 16
I didn't
times.
choose it.
No, that's like 16 times.
It is. There's
Man, you
also the
are strong.
1500, that's 32 times. So,
You are
yeah.
strong. You are strong. You are indeed not just physically strong, but also mentally strong. And you pushed yourself. You pushed yourself. And I'll just give you 30 seconds to say your last piece before we go. A matter of fact, I generally give my guest an opportunity to ask me one question. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask me that one question before you close with your
All
30
right, one
seconds.
question.
Yes.
What were you most surprised to learn about me tonight?
What was I most surprised to learn about you tonight? Wow. Man, what a question. No one, oh my God. What surprised me tonight that I learned about you? That you're a rebel because you don't look it. You don't look like a rebel. You look like an introvert.
I
But
am.
when I hear rebel and tattoos, I'm like, cool,
They're
cool.
very cool tattoos, though.
Yeah, so that was what surprised me. Because because you don't talk much. I never used to hear you talk a lot,
Oh,
but when you say you're a rebel, yeah, that was a little shocker. But I want Jamaica, we say, no worry yourself, my dear. So I'm giving you 30
exactly.
seconds to,
Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on the show. I know this is mostly track and field that you normally cover, so the fact that I get to bless the stage and be a part of and share my experience, share my legacy with you all. Thank you for tuning in. Bliss. Kerry, Trisha, all of the fans, Chris, everybody, Mitch. Appreciate you being there, Phil. Big up. But thank you so much for having me, and hopefully you get to see more of me as the next Olympics comes around for swimming.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And let me tell you, you are the first non-track and field athlete to bless this space. Yes, you are the first non-track and field athlete, and I think I'm going to do it some more because the
Yes.
stories, the stories are just so. The stories are wonderful to
Mm-hmm.
hear. The journey, the challenges, how you guys overcome. Because at the end of the day, you're representing Jamaica, and
100%.
and I'm happy that we did this because I didn't do it on my own. And guys, let me tell you, when I reached out to her and tell her I wanted her on the show, I think it was over the Christmas holiday, and she didn't even hesitate.
Yeah.
She just let me know when. And she is here, Janelle, the rebel, the rebel. Thank you very much
Don't
for
tell it too
being.
loud.
Yes, shh, Janelle.
After.
Yeah, but before you go, one more thing I want you to do. I want you to do the butterfly 5 times. I want you to do the butterfly 5 times. I
All
like
right.
to see.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Awesome, 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 guys.
You
Janelle
got it.
Atkinson, Janelle Atkinson, her legacy, Jamaica's legacy, her family's legacy, Jamaica Olympic legacy, Jamaica swimming legacy, all about Jamaica's legacy. And thank you guys for being here tonight, another night to sit down and listen to another great story. And this story is as authentic as they come. And just before we go, Jenna, let's read some more comments. Keisha, Keisha Wignall is saying, my sister is a rebel. Great interview. See, even Keisha think that you're a rebel. Thank you very much, Keisha Wignall. Thank you very much. One Kina is saying, like up the live. Guys, please to share, subscribe, and like, and spread the word that Janelle Atkinson, our second swimmer, our second athlete of the pool at the Olympic level for Jamaica, female, was here tonight, and she just tell it as it is. Andrea Bliss, big up yourself. She said, big up to the Gator, sis. Man, these Gator people.
Always.
What
Thanks
does it
all the other
mean?
Olympians who stood out. This is the Gator champ.
The Gator champ. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I see. Yes, and thanks to all the other Olympians, all the other athletes, everybody, our neighbors from Trinidad who turn up. Thank you guys very much for
My
the
fellow Olympians,
support.
thank you for tuning in, spreading the love.
Once an Olympian, always an
Always.
Olympian. And of course, Olympian Bonnie M is saying, we want more. Let me tell you, we could talk all night because this interview is very authentic. Thank you very much, Janelle, for being here and that bright smile on your face. You lit up the screen. It's amazing. It's amazing. Continue doing what you're doing, honey.
I
Continue
will.
doing what you're doing, and continue giving back to the
Always.
sport and Jamaica the best way you can. And guys, I will be here next week again. Champs is in the air. I hope Champs will be in the air, but Champs is in the air, so we will be here more often. And next week, I have another great interview lineup for you. So we will be back here next week to do it all over again. And also, we just want to thank Janelle again. Janelle, we feel like we don't want to come off of this
I
stage.
know, right?
But we have to go. But thank you very much, sweetheart. And
Thank you.
have a good night. Have a great weekend, guys. And thank you for tuning in for 2 hours. 2 hours and a little bit. Thank you, guys. And Janelle, take care and we will
Good
talk.
night.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Jamaica's track and field legacy is unmatched. It is a story of triumph, resilience, and extraordinary talent. But do you know the stories behind the athletes who brought us glory? Hi, I'm HP, founder of HP Chat Track. My mission is simple, to celebrate the rich legacy of Jamaica track and field and shine a light on the incredible people who make it happen. Winning that race was a dream come true, but the journey wasn't easy. It's not just about medals, it's about inspiring the next generation. Jamaica track and field isn't just a sport, it's our pride, our culture, our heart. Every week I sit down with athletes, coaches and fans to bring you stories of dedication, passion and legacy. Plus, we've got exciting news and exclusive insights into the world of track and field. Make your Thursday night be at HP's place. Come hang out with us at HP Chat Track Studio, where track and field is our business. Jamaica. One people, one legacy.